I gotta make this one just to empty out my brain bucket so I don't get cranial constipation because things are moving so fast. I saw at least 3 videos today regarding the power outages. And one of them, this is going to be a little chopped up. I'm going to just throw it in and stir it up. One of them was the artist, the content creator, formerly known as Call for an Uprising on whatever channel he is. I'll throw the links in the description to everything that I'm about to describe. Where he's talking about the coming blackouts. And that all of the power outages we've seen in recent times, that's just them testing their tools that they can use to make the power go out for the big one that they're going to do. And he's such a smart truther, he knows that solar flares aren't real, and he's like, and if you're hip to what's going on and you've been doing this long enough that you're aware and you're awake, you know too that solar flares aren't real. Mr. MB3 did a video, and so did Marfugel last night, talking about this story that came out that says Chinese got a backdoor into our solar panels. It means they can remotely control them. And even if the solar only accounts for, let's say, 20% of the electricity on the electrical grid, because the whole grid's connected, by affecting that 20%, you create a cascading effect where it knocks out some of the other grid infrastructure. So even though solar's only 20%, they could affect the other 80%. This other clown, I don't watch him much, Pedro V, he comes with the same thing. They're trying to tell us that solar flares responsible for all the power outages. So links will be in the description to those. And then you got yesterday, I'll even include a timestamp on this one, JWTV, shows this guy in a mask where you can only see his eyes. He's wearing a hoodie or a beanie and a mask. And he shows you, he walks up to a pole, a light pole that's got, the 5G on it. And he unlocks a padlock, 2795, that's the code to all of the padlocks here in Florida. Opens it up, and he calls these frequency weapons that they're using on us. Opens up a box, and you can see 3 switches with beta, delta, and gamma. In other words, the brainwave states of the brainwaves. And he's like, there you go, there you just gotta flip these switches to shut it off. Put your action where your mouth is. Talk is cheap. It's time to take action. A few days ago, we had this story come out about veterans on patrol who are going to go for the next rad radar towers that they think are controlling the weather. Telling people you need to join us and there's no laws against it. And they put out a notice to the people who actually run the towers, watch out. We got some veterans, military veterans, that are conspiracy theorists and essentially domestic homegrown terrorists. They're going to come try and mess with the next rad radar towers, so be careful. Quite a few people in the truth circles did a video on that. So we had those veterans on patrol just a few days ago. Now we got this guy in a mask saying, look, this is the combo to the padlock. You got to go up and open them and flip the switches off on these frequency weapons. That, by the looks of the switch that are labeled delta, gamma, and beta, they're messing with our brain waves. And each one of those switches corresponds to one of your brainwave states, the frequency of your brain waves. And these frequency weapons. So I think pretty soon, they're going to clear out a lot of the truthers, particularly the ones that are saying do when it comes to every one of these fires. The same environmental circumstances that create ionic wind, electric wind, and fires, the environment being out of balance, is conceivably responsible for tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes. But each time one of these happens, there's a trend within the truther community. No, that's their energy weapons. There is no natural weather buff anymore. The Illuminati are behind all of it. Now imagine just for a second with me, put your disbelief and your pet theories aside, And imagine these fires. Let's just do fires alone. As I've proven with 10 different examples within 1 mile of my house that have occurred over the last couple of years, 10 examples that are provably self-evident. The evidence speaks for itself. Those are not directed, intentional, or weaponized. That is the same electricity that creates all the rest of these electrical wildfires. And in those 10 examples, you can prove none of those are directed, intentional, or weaponized. Ergo, until you've got one on the other side of the scale, you got 10 on this side of the scale that are provably electric wildfire, not intentional, weaponized, or directed. And you got 0 on the other side of the scale of anything that's provably directed or weaponized. Thus, every single one of these fires should be considered unintentional, as we have 10 that are proven that way, electric wildfire, unless and until proven otherwise. Imagine for a minute that this is really happening. It is earth changes, and that the powers that be are very well aware. They know everything that you and I know after 7 years of research of the plasma fire. And they're trying to manage the apocalypse with 8 billion people, or however many there are. And you got people trying to whip up a frenzy online and turn a bunch of weaponized retards into a brigade of people that it's time to go take action. Put action where your mouth is. Talk is cheap. It's time to take action now. That guy with the mask on that showed you the combo to the 5G padlocks in Florida, it looks a lot like a Fed job. And that's what people started saying when the Veterans on Patrol story came out, that they're going to do a false banner, a fake flag, frame the truther community, and shut anyone down who's talking about directed this or weather modification that. And putting veterans in the mix is just icing on the cake, because that's kind of a group that's a little hard to rein in. And so when that Veterans on Patrol story came out, they started saying this looks like the lead up, the pretext to a false banner that they're going to perpetuate to frame the truther community as a bunch of nut jobs that are essentially homegrown domestic turners, and shut down any conversations we're having about such things as directed this or modification that. And then this guy with the mask comes out and says, yeah, you need to take action. Here's the combo to the 5G towers, these frequency weapons in Florida. And this guy with the mask looks like a total Fed, like Patriot Front. You know, the fake Trump supporters that come out pretending to be Trump supporters, and everyone knows these are feds, and they're trying to shape the narrative driving, drive the conversation, and shape the perception of who Trump supporters are by coming out saying, yeah, we love Trump, and Heil Hitler. And people know these are feds. They're there to manipulate the perception people have of Trump supporters. And Trump supporters have beat their ass before. And they're always wearing masks, like that guy that's showing you how to unlock the box. By the way, look at that guy's eyes. His pupils are 80% of his eyeball, whether it's Adderall or meth or whatever he's on. His pupils are like garbage trash can lids. I need to try and switch hands. My hand's getting tired. So everyone seems to be tuning in to the idea that the power's going out. Remember that video that I made just a couple weeks back titled "The Power's Going Out"? Showing you that music video that says, no, I really mean it. The power's going out. Everyone seems to be tuning into this, not only as a future event, but it's happening all over. A week ago it was Spain, along with Portugal and France. A couple days ago it was in London. And when that one happened in Spain, the very first report came out, they said it's due to a rare atmospheric phenomenon. I think Portugal was the one that put that out, and then Spain's like, no, shh, what are you talking about? We have no idea why this happened. Yeah, we're still absolutely clueless. Could be this, could be that, could be that, could be this. And they tried to downplay that initial statement that came out, saying it was due to a rare atmospheric phenomenon. No one ever described or defined what this phenomenon you're referring to is. So imagine they're trying to manage the apocalypse with 8 billion people. And they don't need people online whipping up people into a frenzy, giving them their marching orders, telling them it's time to take action. They would prefer people think that it's man-made. So we got, the latest story is China putting back doors into the solar panels. So if our electricity goes out here in the United States, don't look up, look over there at China. A week or two ago, I showed you they got this other story about Russia with their EMP weapons, high-altitude nuclear blast that creates an electromagnetic pulse. In that case, it's Russia. And Iran with their plasma technology. They've suddenly leapfrogged the US, Russia, and China. And suddenly, the guy from the back of the pack is now at the front with plasma technology. So you see any crazy plasma shit, it's Iran. The power goes out, it's Russia or China. Russia with their high-altitude nuclear blast, or China with their back doors into our solar panels. They're already pre-paving the path for the explanation, because they would prefer people think that it's man-made. Because if you know that it's natural and no one has any control over it, I've said this plenty of times, I won't beat the dead horse again, people become out of control. If they know that this is a natural occurrence that no one has any control over, they become uncontrollable. So they would prefer people think that it's directed this or modification that, but they really prefer people just don't think about it or talk about it at all. But if you must, we'd prefer you think about that. But when you start whipping people up into a frenzy saying, we need to go take action, take out the Nexrad towers, take out the frequency weapons on the pole, here's the combo, that becomes a problem. So they're going to shut down a lot of people real soon. Just like during the C-19 operation, people found out that if you disagree with the WHO and the official health organizations, your channel gets removed. And so I think that's coming real soon when it comes to these people talking about directed energy. I think they actually even did me a solid the other day by taking down one of my videos where I was referring to the Tianjin blast and the one in Lebanon. Saying, look, I'll acknowledge some instances where it does appear intentional and directed. And I'd appreciate it if those of you that keep ignoring all the instances I've shown you where it's provably not directed or intentional, I'd appreciate it if you quit ignoring that. And there's some people that still insist every time one of these fires happens, they're like, we're under attack from every direction. It's all over. They're attacking us all around. We need to figure out how this technology works. Dude, stop. So I think those people are going to get cleared out pretty soon. Because that's just compounding the problems that we have to deal with. When we're dealing with the situation that we are, we don't need a bunch of weaponized retards being directed and weaponized. And when they do that, whether it's veterans on patrol or this guy in a mask, and they present conspiracy theorists as essentially homegrown domestic, and they shut down all the conversations about directed energy, that will solidify it in the minds of all the theorists. It must be directed energy because that's no longer what they'll let you talk about. So that's the proof that it is all directed. And they'll know that you can't talk about it anymore. And any newcomers, which is, about 95% of the population, to the subject will know. If you notice electricity in these fires, don't say it, or you're going to be lumped in with those domestic. So it will have a chilling effect on people in general. The mass majority of people will be dissuaded from noticing, well, that's electricity in these fires. You better not be one of those domestic conspiracy theorists. What are you planning on going and attacking the men in black and the Illuminati by taking down some towers or something? So that will solidify it also in the minds of the people that have already been talking about it. Yup, there's the proof. They shut everyone that was talking about directed energy down. There's proof that that's what it is. And now we can no longer talk about it. From that point forward, no one will ever look at geomagnetic induction. There'll be a group of them that are certain it's directed energy, and the rest of them that don't even want to hear about it or notice it or talk about it, because you'll become a domestic criminal along with the rest of them. So the guy on JWTV with the mask that shows you the combination to the padlock and opens up the box on the pole, and it's got delta, beta, and theta or gamma in it, switches you can go turn off. That's something I wouldn't even play on my channel, do a screen record and show you that part of the video, because that's the kind of thing that'll get you taken down here in a few weeks. And that was like a lure. It's bait. It's a honeypot to attract any people that are soft-minded people taking a hardline stance on things they don't understand, and identify them as such, as people that need to be shut down and contained and managed in order to prevent mass hysteria from setting in. They'll make sure no one knows about the geomagnetic induction part of it. That's a 10x problem. People thinking about directed energy, that's like a 2x problem, but people taking action thinking they're going to go put a stop to it, that's like a 5x problem, and we need to keep that from happening. So they're going to squash those conversations real soon. This is all connected in a way to my video series, the Derwin Awards, but I'll try and keep that separate. I think I've pretty much emptied my brain bucket. But I will switch gears here for a minute and start talking about something else that occurred to me recently. Haven't really thought it through too much, but it seems like there might be something to it. Trump just gave $600 billion to the Saudis, contributing to this Neom project. The line, it's about a 100-mile long straight line building out in the middle of the desert. And it's mirrored on the outside, and it's going to have all the high-tech AI, 15-minute city, everything within reach. And it can hold about 9 million people. And it seems to me that's probably a survival bunker. With all the highest tech that we have available to us today, the cutting-edge stuff we didn't even have 5 years ago, in a self-contained city. 9 million is a pretty big society. And it's out there in the middle of the desert. Like when you want to put a buffer zone between yourself and all the roaming savages that are reduced back to hunter-gatherer state, like Jay Dreamers talks about in the steampunk era, where everyone's just collecting the trash that's scattered about, reduced into small tribes, roving bands. That'd be a good place to be. Hold on, I gotta pause it. Out there in the middle of the desert, where you've got like a 100-mile buffer all around you of nothing but desert. So those roving gangs that are scavengers, they won't be able to make it to Neom, because they won't be able to make it through that 100 miles of desert. And most of them won't even know about it, and it's mirrored. So when you look out there, even if someone happens to find a pair of binoculars amongst the rubble and look out there, it just looks like a mirage in the distance. And the mirror reflects the sun, which is going to be a problem, the sun. And it's very similar to a movie called Code 46, where they live in some sort of highly technologically advanced super city. It's like a post-apocalyptic world where within this self-contained city they speak a combination of English, Mandarin, and Spanish, the most common languages from the world. And they have a saying that says, the Sphinx knows best. And the Sphinx, in that movie Code 46, is the AI that determines who gets papers to travel and who doesn't, and determines everything else about the city. And people that are left afuera, outside, that's Spanish for outside, are fucked, and they die in the heat. In that movie, Code 46, everyone goes about their business during the nighttime, because during the day, the sun is too hot to bear. It's no longer bearable. Can't do our business and our daily activities during the day like we always have, so we go about doing it at night and sleep during the day. Those that live in the city have indoor, AC and all that they need. Those that live outside the city walls are the ones that are left afuera, outside, left behind. And so that Neom, the line that Trump just contributed $600 billion to, I'd say he's just making reservations for a certain number of people that will be afforded the opportunity to go live there. Meanwhile, you got these other truther channels saying, no, it's like a jail and a prison, and you'll be in a cell, and they'll force you to get the Neuralink in order to be part of their society, etc. A lot like what we think of might exist in Antarctica, Tartaria, Atlantis, the survivors from the previous era of high technology before it crashed. Those who made it through the last reset. And they chose to go clear out in the middle of Antarctica for the same reason that they're choosing to go out in the middle of the desert. As remotely far away from the scavengers that'll be set back to horse and buggy, have all of their history rewritten. And maybe that's why we have these international agreements. Everyone agrees no one goes to Antarctica, no one lets their people go to Antarctica. And those who live in Neom, the line, will be the new Illuminati of the next era after the reset. They will still have the highly technologically advanced society with all the knowledge and understanding and cultural cultivation that was achieved during this era, retained in that one little self-contained society out in the middle of nowhere. And as society regrows and develops, they're essentially set back to caveman mentality, horse and buggy technology. They'll start out as hunter-gatherers, and then probably within a couple of years, some of them will have settled down and become an agrarian society and start gardening once again. And then probably won't take too long, maybe another 20, 40 years, they'll be back to industrial era. We went from horse and buggy, to Hadron Collider in 200 years. I don't think we evolved over millions of years and then just within the last 200 made those advancements. But my point is, this Neom, the line that Trump just gave $600 billion to, seems more like a doomsday survival bunker. Right out in the public. They're not keeping it secret. And it's got all the infrastructure, the most highly advanced infrastructure, to be a self-contained city in the middle of the desert. There is no business model that would make that profitable, like Elon's SpaceX. Or Elon's Starlink. I remember seeing a tweet that went out by Elon saying, if we don't launch 4 rockets a week, or 6, or however many it was, we're going to go bankrupt. Huh? Those are just supposedly satellites to bring internet service to people in far-flung places, and you're going to recoup your costs? The people that are in the far-flung places of Africa and the outbacks of Australia aren't going to be paying you for internet service. Everyone that is a prospective customer and a buyer of your service to pay their monthly service bill already lives within range of cell phone service and internet Wi-Fi. We got to launch 4 rockets a week or we're going to go bankrupt. Bankrupt was a euphemism. Those aren't just satellites. And the amount of money they're dropping into this Neom project, there's not enough billionaires in the world to facilitate any kind of return on your investment. No matter how nice it is or how high priced it is, there's just not enough people in the world that would actually make a reasonable investment that you're going to turn a profit on. It's more like a survival location for 9 million people. Just something I was thinking about recently. And so after the reset, when you have this highly technologically advanced pocket of society living in the desert. The rest of the tribes surrounding don't even know they're there. Like those who still survived in Antarctica from the previous reset. Just a thought. I don't know if any of this is true. They would be able to insert themselves within society to help build and grow it. They would set the narratives within their religions. They would define their history as they develop education. And they would seem like normal people. But they're not normal people like the rest of the hunter-gatherers that have turned into agrarian and now maybe some industrial. They're from the highly advanced technological civilization like Elysium. And they take oaths that before I will give the secrets of a master mason, I will give my life before I give the secrets of our holdout over there in the desert. Because it's more important to keep that secret from these scavengers that have been reduced to savages. And instead we help develop their culture, their consciousness, mold and raise and grow and develop their society from our stronghold that we got over there that none of them know about. And we send people from Neom into the societies. Oh, hey, stranger, where'd you come from? Oh, I just been scavenging. Yeah, I just been scavenging. Can I join you guys here? Looks like you got a little tribe started. Maybe we can get some commerce going. And these people know about the secrets of money, finance. And they know the history and the technology that this tribe is going to develop to once again. And they help facilitate that, blending in as a regular, scavenger who's actually from Neom or Elysium. Interesting stuff to think about. I think Neom is a survival location. I remember James True once saying, the Freemasons, all you people that are so afraid of Freemasons, all you soft-minded people taking a hardline stance on things you don't understand, saying they're evil, they're this and they're that. The Masons have made it through every one of the previous resets. They're the ones that hold the secrets, that know what the rest of us don't know, whatever that is. They know more about us than we know about ourselves. They know more about society and the way the world works. And right now, as they're trying to manage the final scenes of the Great Reset, of this era of human existence, and try to make a smooth transition, they don't need a bunch of weaponized retards running around trying to take down the radar towers and the 5G because they think they got some sort of idea. Everyone wants to play the hero or the victim, and in order to do that, you need a villain. And by making them the villain, that makes me the hero and the victim. And I'm saving all the rest of these victims by exposing those villains and their directed energy. And in order to keep that bullshit coming out your pie hole, you got to ignore all the examples I've shown you where it's provably not directed and that these are electric wildfires. Now put yourself in the position of the people around the world who know everything that any viewer of this channel knows about plasma fire. And you're trying to manage this situation, this unfolding earth change that we're going through. Yeah, it's kind of going to be necessary to shut these people up before they foment some sort of hysteria and revolution. Say, we need to rise up. We got enough on our plate already to deal with managing this transition. We don't need a bunch of weaponized retards thinking they know something, getting some smart ideas. It's going to be necessary to curb that conversation real soon. Word to the wise for those of you that want to keep ignoring all the examples I've shown you of electric wildfire that is provably not directed, intentional, and weaponized, and saying this technology they're using, we're under attack. You're going to be silenced real soon. You're doing a great disservice. So don't delay, act now, supplies are running out. Allow if you're still alive, 6 to 8 years to arrive. And if you follow, there may be a tomorrow, but if the offer's shunned, you might as well be walking on the sun. Dun, 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 might as well be walking on the sun. Mining operation, there's underground. I made a video, actually a couple videos, with the title Managing a Controlled Apocalypse. I think there was a part 1 and 2, where I showed you the stormtroopers crashed on the side of the road in the video footage that came from mainstream news outlet in Israel that was reporting to show wartime footage in Ukraine. And you can see downed stormtrooper craft with a couple stormtroopers leaning up next to their craft in their white suit, their white stormtrooper suits. And on 2 different occasions, the commander of the armed forces, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the Ukrainian armed forces, tweeted video game footage from Arma 3, a video game titled Arma 3, and reported that to be wartime footage from Ukraine. When he did it the second time, he had already gotten caught for it the first time. It's real easy to put some images through the Google search filter and it matches them up and says that's video game footage from Arma 3. He had already gotten caught for it the first time, immediately, within like a half hour of the time he put it up. But then he did it again. Posted some more video game footage, reported it as more wartime footage. And I showed you how they were using wooden cutouts of guns on Fox News, which was, again, supposedly wartime footage from Ukraine. The idea of controlling, of managing a controlled apocalypse means we have manufactured wars. That might account for some of the blasts. That allows them to mobilize mass amounts of equipment and put themselves in positions and activate processes that are actually for the apocalypse. And C-19 operation, where every country around the world worked in lockstep to put their citizens on lockdown and practice exercising these new types of authority by the new sheriff in town, who overrules all the judges and all the police. The health department said so, and now the judges and the police, they are all answering to the health department. There's a new sheriff in town whose authority overrides everyone else's authority. None of the judges and none of the police can say anything about it. They have to go with the new edicts. The new law is a decree spoken from on high, from this new authority that overrides all other authorities. And every country in the world exercised this same new authority over their people. A dry run, a practice run to cultivate the people, to get them used to the idea of lockdowns, of authority figures who, in the name of public safety, all your rights go out the window, all the laws that you thought applied, those no longer apply. A new law was just spoken by His Royal Highness Fauci, and the decree has gone out across the land, and everyone will comply. And it was in the name of, well, the flu disappeared this year, so we're calling it something different. But we're just practicing a dry run for these new exercises so we can know that when it's go time, everyone's already in place. They literally manned Cheyenne Mountain, the ultimate doomsday bunker that they just keep on standby most of the time. They activate it. All systems go. Everyone file in to the Cheyenne Mountain doomsday bunker. I never heard if they ever came out. I know I heard that they activated everything in there that's normally just on standby. It's now fully operational. Every position in there is manned. Someone's at every post, as if it's go time. And The C-19 operation allowed them to mobilize all these assets. Remember the ship on both sides of the United States, the Mercy and the Comfort, these military hospital ships? And all the other military equipment and personnel that were moved around the world to combat the invisible boogeyman? Managing a controlled apocalypse seems to be a pretty good idea of what that would make sense of a lot of what we're seeing. And it also incorporates this idea that they're going to silence all the DEWtards. All the DEWtards are adding complications to an already complicated process of managing a controlled apocalypse. Yes, we want the people who do notice the electricity in the fires to think it's man-made. But then we want them to put off the vibe like, yeah, it's probably like dew or something. And then go back to work. Not get all hyped up and freaked out. We want people to think it's man-made and directed and someone has their finger on some button, rather than allow people to realize, oh my God, no one's in control. But when the DEWtards start whipping people up into a frenzy, that's when we got to put a stop to it. And from that point forward, you no longer get to run around, direct energy, smart city, land grab, mining operation, there's an underground water aquifer there they're trying to get, they're trying to build a data center, maybe it's a housing development for the mining operation that they want to build. That was a lunar eclipse on the same day. Mercury's in retrograde. I'll talk about that more in another video. That's called flooding the zone with shit and creating a cognitive DDoS attack, directed denial of service, where you just flood them with so much shit they can't make heads or tails of any of it. That's kind of off the topic. That's for the Derwin Awards, where we talk about Napoleon's pickled penis and whether or not you want the truth or just to keep pushing your, selling the idea that you got the goods. Yeah, that's a different subject. But managing a controlled apocalypse is going to require, at some point in the near future, some narrative-driving operations. And the way that they do this is by putting some people out there that look like domestic terrorists, reciting all that stuff, weather modification, directed energy weapons, and then they go do some shit. And now, you guys pipe down. Unless you want to get locked up with them in the name of national security, we're going to have to nip this in the bud. And anyone talking about that is going to be dealt with. And so from that point forward, we no longer have to deal with an army of weaponized retards. And it solidifies the idea that it's directed energy weapons, and no one's going to latch on to geomagnetic induction because they saw how true it is that it must be directed energy weapons because they silenced everyone that was talking about it. And no one, from that point forward, they censor, they filter their own perception. And if they would otherwise notice the electricity component of these fires, now they don't. Why? Because only a terrorist would notice that electricity in those fires, and I'm not one of those guys. So that social engineering operation of a false flag that's coming up to frame the debate, mold the perception of people who talk about that kind of stuff, is going to be necessary. Maybe after the tribes, the post-apocalyptic tribes of hunter-gatherers turn to agrarian society, then industrial, and they start developing their culture enough that they're traversing the land back and forth. They have communications. Maybe then Neom, the line, will need to be collapsed. You know, like the state fair or the world fairs that they would have, where they would come from all around the world to collapse and destroy one of these old world buildings. Yeah, they claim, no, we just built this in the last year out of plaster. And then they destroy it. maybe they would, after culture develops to a degree, have to drop Neom as part of the prime directive not to interfere with the development of another culture. If they discover and allow them to continue believing that they spring out of the mud, that they're the first generation to ever develop and that they're the smartest thing to ever grow here on this planet, we would have to eventually collapse Neom, the line, the 100-mile-long building of high-tech, advanced, self-contained society, in order to let the thriving culture of consciousness on this planet continue to grow and develop unimpeded by that which would completely rewrite their entire paradigm. If they were to stumble across this old world building with all the high-tech stuff from the year 2025, after the reset, when they think that they're once again the most highly advanced, technologically sophisticated society to ever exist on this planet, like they did during the World's Fairs. So the idea that the fluctuating and weakening magnetic field is behind these fires, these surges of ground current that come about as a result of a fluctuation in the magnetic field, which also creates ionic wind. So when the fires start, there's simultaneously massive amounts of wind. And all of the rest of the weather anomalies that we've been seeing recently can be caused by the same thing, and it's compressed into a nutshell here in a far better way by David Devine.
These things that were predicted and talked about are in full swing right now. Like what the whole model was like this. I'll just explain it for anybody who doesn't. Grand solar minimum, magnetic fields in the sun change, affecting Earth's magnetic shielding or magnetic field. And we're seeing a decline right now, incredible declines. And I wanted to talk about that rip through the magnetic field with the plasma penetration and over Spain that caused power outages. Like this was already expected anyway. That same deviation in electric current causing that rip through and punch through the ionosphere, that's also what holds our cloud cells and jet streams in place and keeps those moisture patterns nice and smooth that we've figured out over the last 200 years when to plant and when to harvest. Magnetic field of our planet, if it's really tight and compressed, those jet streams really stay locked in place. They don't go very far. They're finding the cloud cells, which are normally from, 0 on the equator to, say, 30 north, like the Hadley cell. That's the most famous one. Those things have moved some hundreds of miles off the equator. They're not at the actual position that they used to be, even when they started measuring and, taking, I guess, measurements per latitude on where these cells begin, where the interaction cells are. Because generally it went from equator to 30. And then there was another whole cell that was 30, and it mixed in and pulled all that to 60 degrees north latitude. And then there was another whole cell, there was an Arctic cell that pulled all that from 60 up to the Arctic Circle. And that's how, when you get a very ferocious volcanic eruption on the equator, how all that ash gets dragged across the planet. There's that cellular convection going from one cloud cell to the next. Now that's predicated on electricity coming in the system here from a sun, and also the different, I'm going to use the best way to try to is compression on a magnetic field to lock it in place so those jet streams stay locked in place. When that compression comes off, more galactic cosmic rays come in. But as you're seeing now, this is a once in a 400-year event. A lot of people are now really going, hey, this is a once in a 2,000 at the minimum. I'll be conservative and stay 400. We're starting to see it. And then, so that's the natural thing. But then they had to give an excuse. So global warming was perfect, because anything that you saw that was out of the ordinary, global warming, CO2, they bought themselves how much time, how many decades did they buy by people not being aware and not changing their habits and being led by the media to do exactly what they're told through the dog and pony show and this illusion called world that we live in. And then we come to the world that we live in, where, do you think your food just got super more expensive just randomly because? No, there's been continuous decreasing crop yields year upon year since probably about 2019. That's when it was. And right when COVID came in, I'm like, that was the biggest distraction pattern ever. They locked down the planet. And that was one thing I had forecast many a time, 2015, 16, before this thing really kicks off, they're going to lock down the planet. Okay, they locked it down, but then they unlocked it. because they need to bring in a new economic system. So food is going to become one of the most expensive parts of your life. And it's always been that way. The last iteration, every 400 years, you get this cycle that comes back. And the main number one thing is the food's not as available to grow. It's not as plentiful. It's not as nutritious. And the yields are far lower. I don't care if it's veg or if it's fruit or if it's grains. It's been like that through history. Nuts. People can't afford that price.
So to those who keep ignoring all of the examples I've shown you where these electric wildfires are clearly not directed, weaponized, or controlled, you are about to be lumped in with the rest of these people who have been radicalized and have become extremists due to the online disinformation they've been subjected to that you are peddling. Keep pushing your shit and see what happens.
Alright, 2514 is the code to the locks on these frequency weapons in Florida. All you gotta do is walk up, punch in the code, and once you do that, that's what they look like. That's where the lock is. You take that off, and then you can open this up. And once you do that, all you gotta do is flip the switches, and that will disable these frequency weapons that they're activating today. Talk is cheap. Time to start putting some action where your mouth is and shut this shit down.
When I say weaponized retards, that's not hyperbolic rhetoric. That is a very accurate description of the people, the company that you are lumping yourself in with if you keep pushing this shit. While all of the evidence exists around us, particularly that I have cataloged in my video library, showing these electric wildfires are not directed, intentional, or weaponized. You've been warned. When you are dealt with and silenced by any means necessary, it will be for the greater good. You have become part of the problem, not the solution. You're not the hero. You're not the victim. There is no villain. Look in the mirror.